I love about Foss's character is despite how much they physically change from the beginning to the end, they actually don't change mentally that much. Instead, I think that the physical change just brings out what was already there. The first time Foss replaces a part of themselves with something else, they are sporadic and find it hard to control themselves, with the leg movement, you know. But Congo deems this as Foss's inclusions finally getting to act how they want to, despite Foss's brittle body before. And every time Foss gets a new piece, Foss reacts badly to it at first, and then adapts to it later. And this adaptation is the human part of Foss, the inclusions, getting to show more of themselves. And that's why Foss gets more human throughout the series, is because of the inclusions finally being able to be themselves, and the inclusion part of Foss never changes in what they want or desire. As the story goes on, it just becomes more clear the humanness of Foss, but that humanness of Foss is actually very static. In 107, we see a separation, a break between Foss's inclusions and Foss themselves. This break clearly separates the materials that the inclusions desired and Foss, the material that the inclusions rejected. They actively went away from the piece of Fosphophylite. The constant static link and desire of the human inclusions inside Foss is their desire to improve, their desire to always want something, their desire to change, their human desire for accomplishment. When Foss gets their legs, they're allowed to move freely and sporadically and are finally able to run places, but they still break. And the inclusions accept the legs, they accept those parts, but they are still rejecting the weaker pieces of Fosphophylite. When they get the arms, Foss is weighed down by the weight of something new, but the inclusions love it. They will refuse to let go of it, and because of that, Foss is left there. We are seeing a war between Foss's self and the materials that the inclusions desire. I know a lot of people were wondering why the gold doesn't listen to Foss when Foss first gets the arms, and the reason is because there's the inclusions and there's Fosphophylite. And it's been a long time since we've seen the Fosphophylite part, but we're finally going to get to see that in 108 probably. When Foss gets their head, they are able to see the world completely differently once Laphaz's inclusions accept them. This change of view just exasperates their needs and desires because they can see and think more clearly about so many more things. You know, the phrase, ignorance is bliss. Well, once Foss no longer had that ignorance, they were able to see things that they weren't able to see before and get further unsatisfaction. And the inclusions were able to further seek out more things that they wanted. In fact, just before Foss loses their head, they express how they're going to stop. They're going to be content for once in their life, and they're going to try to just be present and happy in where they are. Kind of. You know, it's not the same with Foss, but they express that they want to stop what they are doing. They want to stop investigating. They are content with not knowing anything. As soon as they get Lapaz's head, no. And they make a deal with Lapis that they're going to investigate. And that's why Acmea gave Foss Lapis head, because Foss was starting to lose motivation for it. But then their inclusions won again after getting Lapis's head, and the human desire for change, the human desire for information, the human desire for knowledge and wisdom, and all these things is what leads Foss further forward on their path. Now when Foss gets the eye, they become physically sick. In fact, they even pass out. And at this point, their desire for knowledge turns into action. They're dissatisfied with the fact that they now know all this knowledge, but that others don't know it, and that they have a superiority complex. That's why Foss's language changes to be above the gems at this point, is because they now believe that they are wiser than anyone else, and because of that, they believe that they have the burden to make change, even if the others don't know it's good for them. But instead of understanding them like they would previously, without all the inclusions, the human desire and inclusions take over, leading Foss that they need to do it alone, and that they need to do what's best for others without them knowing it. Which is why Foss just goes to manipulation and goes to all the lengths that they go to take revenge on the gems, basically. Because in their knowledge, they know what's best. And the human part of them is unable to move on from that unsatisfaction that they feel because they must do it. This is in contrast to Cinnabar, who exhibits similar feelings to Foss at the beginning, of being ostracized from the group and being a low hardness and all that. But Cinnabar stays on their side. Cinnabar stays with the status quo and stays with Congo, and that's because Cinnabar does not enact change. That's why Foss is a job hopper so much, and Cinnabar found one job and stuck with it, and Foss always desires something better. They're always unsatisfied. From the very beginning to the very end, they're always unsatisfied. In fact, that's the reason why they let the pebbles go at the end. Throughout these years and years of journeys that Foss has been on, the one thing that they know is constant, the one thing that will never change about them in their view, is that they will always have the human desire that makes them completely unsatisfied with life no matter where they are. They believe that they will never be able to be content, and that is the reason they reject the Pebbles' offer, because they knew that even if they went with the Pebbles, they would still be discontent, they would still be seeking something, they would still be unsatisfied. I thought for the series to end on that happy note, that 106 would have Foss leading their own happiness charge or making their own decision to be content, something to make them be at peace. But we don't see that. In fact, in 106 and 107, it shows how the human inclusions inside Foss never changed. Absolutely never. They were always unsatisfied and they were always seeking something more. They were always desired for change and acceptance and to be loved by others. And that never changed, not even in their ending moments. When Brongo takes the last piece of Fossophyllite, the part without human desire, the pebbles are able to pray Foss away, the humanness of Foss away. And it shows that Foss couldn't find peace on their own. They never were able to throughout the entire series. And it shows that they needed other people to do it, but they actively rejected that. They actively rejected the thing that they most wanted because they always wanted something more. They always felt like they deserved better. They always felt like there was always something more that they could gain to get rid of their self-hatred. The human inclusions inside Foss are emphasized to be different in the lore book and statue, with the statue saying that Foss's inclusions are a lot different from the others and that they are more of them or more active. I have to translate it more better. But the lore book states that the gems materials mimic their personalities, however, Foss's doesn't. This shows that the inclusions and the material that Foss is made of have always had an incompatibility, and because of this, the inclusions have always been dissatisfied with the material that they started with, Fossophyllite. And this dissatisfaction propels the story forward, which is why Foss's underlying goals and aspirations are so static. They've always wanted the same thing, they've just expressed it in different ways. They've always wanted change. They have always hated themselves. They have always been dissatisfied. And even at the end, they weren't able to relieve themselves of that pain alone. The human inclusion part of Foss and their final words indicate a completion to their unchanging desires that the pebbles were able to give them by praying. They were able to finally be satisfied with what they did, with "I'm accomplished." They were finally able to see themselves clearly in the way that they said that they couldn't do anything, and that also showed their inner thing of wanting to overcome that. They are finally able to see that throughout their entire story they just wanted to be praised by others for what they have done, or for just being who they are, because they were never satisfied with themselves and always was a critic to themselves. They finally realized that they didn't want to be alone. They finally realized they can be satisfied being with others and existing in a community. At the end, their weight of their unsatisfaction is finally lightened, and they are saved from their human desire of unsatisfaction that the inclusions gave them, and thus they're finally able to move on and return to nothingness. But throughout every stage of Foss, that motivation was there. That desire was there. That never changed. They were never, ever satisfied with themselves. And every single time they gained another piece, it just exasperated their static nature of being unsatisfied, of their self-hatred being expressed on display every single time. They were never satisfied with the changes that they made. They were always a critic with themselves. Even though they got what they wanted but previously with every single form, they were unsatisfied and they could not find contentness with that. This is the main marker that makes them a static character. Mentally, they are probably one of the most static characters I've ever seen in fiction. Anyway, April Fools, I would never gaslight you.